All right, PRS just did a thing, and I need to know, did they lose their minds making their cheapest guitar yet? Hey everyone, I'm Dave with Beast Made Reviews, of course a channel dedicated to reviewing quality at different price points. Now a while back I made a video about PRS, the SE DGT, and in that one I talked a lot about my history with PRS, how when I was growing up learning the guitar I saw PRS in a local shop and I looked at it and it was like the Excalibur, just gazing at it. There were always guitars that were on my wish list, and PRS had just never come to fruition for one reason or another. I've played a lot of PRS guitars and they've all been fantastic, but for different reasons I just couldn't buy them at the time. When I was younger I actually wrote PRS a letter, back when you would write letters to people, and asked them for a catalog, back when you had catalogs. They sent me their catalog and inside was a pull-out poster of their entire line of guitars with all the different guitars and colors, some special models they were making at the time, and I would just drool over looking at it. I hung it up on my wall and every night I would look at the poster and dream of the day I would one day get a PRS. And to this day, I still have the PRS poster, though I don't hang it on my wall at this point. In the last couple of years, I've gotten to play and review some really great guitars from PRS, and some that I have genuinely been tempted to buy because I genuinely love them so much. Today, though, reminds me so much of how I started my journey playing the guitar, playing Beatles songs on the guitar in my room on an acoustic or an electric Yamaha that I had, my first electric guitar. Because PRS just released their cheapest guitar they've ever made to date, their PRS CE SE 24 Standard. And if you like this type of content, if you like guitar content, if you like content on quality, on fashion, on anything in between, consider subscribing down below. I think you'll really love it here. And if you like this guitar, I'll also have a link down below. It's an affiliate link to Zounds. That is an affiliate link, and anytime you buy through that, it does help out the channel, and I always appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now, for several years now, PRS has been slowly expanding their line of offerings and price points for their guitars. They have their core line, which is probably what they're mostly known for. It's their Made in Maryland production line, which is their kind of standard line. Then you have their private stock, which is like their custom shop of sorts, and you can go anything that you want on a PRS, you can put on a PRS. So cool. I've seen some wild private stocks that have just been like drool worthy. Then you have the S2 line. The S2 line is also made in Maryland, but at a cheaper price point. And then you have the SE line, which their SE line is made by Cortec in Indonesia, and that's their cheapest price line that they offer. Now this model is, of course, has a really long name. Their SE 24 Standard. I really hate the name. It is so long and really cumbersome to talk about. If someone asks you what guitar this is, you have to go through this whole spiel and list off a whole license plate number. But that aside, gripes aside here, this SE 24 takes cues from the original CE line of bolt-on neck guitars that they made back in, I think, 1988. And this has now become their cheapest guitar that they've made at $499, which is insane. Now let's get to some specs of this guitar real quick. Now this is very similar to many other PRS guitars that they have. This is a mahogany body. In this case, it's a multi-piece body. It has a shallow violin carve. It has a satin finish, which looks like a stain. This one is in charcoal, but they also have vintage cherry and turquoise. It has a maple neck with a scarf joint, a rosewood fretboard, 24 frets, a 10-inch radius, and bird inlays. It has a bolt-on neck, wide thin neck shape, 25-inch scale length that PRS is known for, and it has PRS branded hardware and an unspecified nut. They just say is a PRS nut. Their pickups are what they call 8515S pickups. There's a push-pull coil tap. It's set up with 9 to 42 strings, and it also includes a gig bag. let's get to some pros and cons. I'll start with the pros real quick. Now, I love this guitar. I think this is a great guitar. The first pro is really easy. It's just the price. The price is absolutely fantastic. This is a lower level entry point for a lot of players, especially if you're just beginning guitar. This is a really great price point. And the fact that it also includes a really nice gig bag, I mean, get out of town. This is a great deal. The next pro that I love is just the finishing of the guitar. It's flawless. There's nothing that I could find on here that really signified that this was a quote unquote cheap guitar. It plays and feels way more expensive than it actually is. I couldn't find any blemishes other than one I'll mention in a minute. I couldn't find anything that hindered the playability, that was uncomfortable, anything. It was all perfect. And again, I find that really impressive. This is like PRS quality at $500. The next pro is just the feel. I love the feel of this guitar. I usually typically like maybe thicker necks, thicker C-shaped necks. This was a little thinner than that, but it was still really comfortable and playable. It felt great, didn't feel too thin. The neck itself has a kind of satin feel on there, which is very nice. It's not painted over and it's not glossy. It's just kind of a satin feel. It's very smooth. And the rest of the guitar felt great too. It balances really well. The shallow carve actually does help, especially when you're resting your arm on the side of the guitar. And all the pots and the switches felt great too. They didn't feel chintzy or cheap like some cheaper guitars often do. They felt really high quality. The volume pot had a high friction pot on there. It had more of a slower roll off as you roll off the volume, but the tone pot was very slick. The next pro is just the sound. Now I know the sound is very subjective, but to me, I love the sound of this. It had a very PRS type of sound, which I really like. They're very round with some clarity as well. The pickups also were very balanced, both in their frequency response, just as pickups, but also in their levels from the neck to the bridge. They're very balanced in sound, which I'm always looking for. I don't want one to be louder than the other or one to be more muddy while the other one is really shrill. Sometimes that happens. These were not. These were very balanced in the spectrum and in the volume, which is awesome. Also, the coil tap was really usable here too. I really like the coil tap. These are great. You don't really lose any volume whenever you're switching to the coil tap. They sound really good, and they have a little bit more of a jangly feel in here, which I really appreciate here. But here's a little snippet of how they compare. All right, now let's get to some cons, and I do have a couple of cons, though maybe they're a little bit minor here and there. The first con is the color itself. Now, I like charcoal, I like black guitars, and I think the colors that they have here are fine. I don't love them. I think the charcoal is probably my favorite of the three. There's a little bit of a purple twinge to this, which I find kind of interesting. It's almost like a black ink of sorts. And I don't know if the finish is actually a stain or if it just looks like a stain. And because of that, the way that it is applied on this guitar looks kind of bad. Now, this is a multi-piece body, and I'm totally fine with that. I think that's fine, especially for this price. But because of the stain or whatever the finish they used here, you can see each piece like really obvious. It looks really bad, and I think is pretty ugly here. If I were to get this in the mail and I didn't see it, I would send it back immediately. And if I were to see this on the wall, this would be not the one I wanted to pick out. I'd pick out a completely different one. But the one I have here, if someone gave this to me, I would be pretty disappointed with the color. I just hate the way that the color and the finish on the front looks. It just is bad. And the other con here is another personal subjective thing, and that is that this is set up with 9-gauge strings. Now, if you're a beginner guitar player, that might be totally your preference, and maybe other people might like and prefer 9s as well. I know a lot of people do. I think a lot of other PRS guitars are automatically set up with 10s, so I think they're kind of just signaling that this is more of a beginner style guitar, which I totally get. But I would immediately just change out the strings for 10s. The tension of a PRS guitar is already kind of in that sweet spot where it has a good kind of feel to it. And with the 9s, you can go for like 2-step bends on this, which is insane. It's very slinky and very bendy, which some people might really like, but I just prefer a little bit more tension. Now that's an easy fix and is not really a quirk of the guitar, easy change, but it is just a con for me personally. Now, who is this guitar for? Now, I think it would be unfair to compare this guitar to other PRS guitars that are thousands of dollars more money. I think that would be an unfair comparison. It's not a PRS core guitar. It's not supposed to be one. This is a $500 guitar that is supposed to play and feel and sound far better than a $500 guitar, and they delivered that in spades. And this is definitely for someone who likes PRS, but they might not want to spend thousands of dollars on a PRS guitar. Maybe they don't care about all the fancy things that PRS core guitars have. Maybe they just want a stripped down guitar. Or maybe they're just beginners and they want a PRS guitar. They like the look and the sound of PRS and they want that experience, but they don't want to have to pay a whole lot of money for one. I know personally, if I were to get this as a 14-year-old kid, I would be absolutely giddy. This would be my dream guitar. This is a guitar that I would love to get. When I was learning guitar, PRS was out of my league. It was so far out of my budget that I would never be able to get one. But for young kids now, PRS has made a guitar that this is attainable. They can have a PRS guitar and they don't have to sacrifice anything to get one. You can spend a little bit of money and you can have that perfect PRS experience. And this is a guitar that is not like an intermediary guitar to get you to a better guitar. This is a guitar that if you give this to a beginner or you buy this as a beginner, this will last you for years and you may not even want to get anything else. It's that good. The fit and finish is flawless. The sound is very modern and very PRS. The overall experience is just insane. I love it. Whenever I see this guitar, it really brings back a lot of memories of me as a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid learning to play guitar, wanting to get a PRS guitar, but never could. I would play in my room, I would practice scales, I would play Beatles songs that I really was familiar with, and I played it on guitars that I could afford at the time. They were decent guitars, but they weren't what I wanted. PRS has filled the perfect void for someone like me as a teenager. This is a guitar that would be perfect for someone growing up, learning guitar, and wanting that perfect PRS Excalibur. If I have one of these, I would still play Beatles songs on it, and I still do play Beatles songs on it. It is a great guitar. Definitely check out the PRS CE 24 Standard. It's a great guitar. Thank you again for watching. I love this guitar, and I hope you get one. I'll see you next time. I'm Dave with Beastmaker Reviews.